And I had been, since I left the cult at 26, studying leadership and relationship, mostly for my own purposes, because like you can imagine growing up the way that I did, I didn't have any healthy models. No one was pointing me towards, this is how you build healthy relationships. This is how you actually lead people in a way that's beneficial and healthy and so on and so forth, because they weren't showing up that way. And if I had access to that knowledge, I could hold them accountable, right? And they didn't want that. And so I needed for myself to understand, how do I show up as a healthy human? How do I not hurt the people around me? How do I take accountability when I do hurt the people around me?
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that has inspired them and inviting us all to reflect and grow together. Today we're joined by Shana Francesca, a remarkable keynote speaker and the founder of Consignate LLC. Shana's journey as a cult survivor has shaped her into a passionate advocate for intentional and ethical leadership, reminding us of the profound impact community can have on our lives. Let's dive into Shana's world and discover the wisdom that has inspired her along the way. Tell me your name and what your favorite quote is, or philosophy or lesson, whatever it is you're sharing.
Yeah, so my name is Shana Francesca, and for me, the basis of everything for me is curiosity and recognizing, it's connected to how we recognize who we are, connected to how we build relationships with the world around us, how we learn, how we change, how we grow, both individually and as a society. And coming from my background, I grew up in a very, very restrictive religion, and inside of an institution that was very, very, one could say it was a cult. It became important for me to hold on to my curiosity. And one of the things that I did to kind of inspire myself and stay connected to who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be able to show up in the future when I had control over it, was like I would put quotes all over the wall. I would write them on index cards and tape them on my walls. So when you were talking about, sharing quotes that have inspired us, I was like, yay, I love that.
Okay. I'm waiting for the quote.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry. One of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou is, "You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high and the reward is great." And for a long time, I just had to sit with that and realize that when you sit present with who you are and you get to know who you are, you belong every place that you are. Doesn't mean that everybody else accepts your presence there, but your presence is valid wherever you are because you exist inside of yourself. And being confident about who you are and spending time in the places where people do see you is extremely important. Another quote that I love is, "You have seen my descent, now watch my rising." And it's a quote from Rumi. And when I left even before I left the cult that I was raised in, there was so much constant struggle, protecting myself.
Wait. You're just cutting all the juicy parts of the story and giving us the shaft. Please, let's take it one step at a time.
Sure.
We need details. Please.
Yeah.
Details.
Yeah. So, going into the struggles that I experienced, having to constantly protect yourself from the people around you, having to divert all of your energy, not from discovering who you are and investing in your creativity or learning and growing, but instead to protecting yourself because, your own family members, particularly my father, but also, both my parents, they were young when they had me. They were still young when we joined the church-less cult that I was raised in. And there was a lot of emotional turmoil all of the time, not just emotional, but physical. And, in that environment, you constantly feel like you're failing because you can't be yourself. You don't even have the ability to be yourself. You're, healing from abuse. You're trying to protect yourself from abuse. And so, back to the quote from Rumi, "You've seen my descent, now watch my rising." It wasn't even like I had the opportunity to rise and then fall. I just kind of started out just thrown off a cliff in my life. That's how it felt anyway. There was nothing ever to anchor me, not family, not my home, nothing. This religion that dictated how I was supposed to show up and made it bad or wrong if I just tried to be myself at all. There was all of these things that just kind of kept thrusting me into the world without any way to anchor myself or be myself, because I think being ourselves is how we are anchored in this world. And so I remember when I first read the quote by Rumi, I thought, my whole life has been a descent, up until this point, right? And I think now the only thing that can happen is it goes up. I don't see how it can get any worse from here. And so, that kind of, I really attached to that quote, knowing that I now, once I left and once I gained autonomy and once I found a way to care for myself financially and live on my own and all of those things, I was like, okay, now my life, not the life other people have chosen for me, my life gets to start. And so, it was kind of like, yeah, positive and up from there.
Why did you stop?
Oh, why did I
Why
stop
did you
talking?
stop?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know if you
I'm
wanted me
just
to go
kidding.
on
I'm
to
just
the
kidding.
yeah,
I'm
I didn't
just
know if
kidding.
you
I'm
wanted me to
just
go on
kidding.
to the next quote or not.
Okay. Wow. I was like, I just sat there. I was like, I had, at the point in time, I forgot I was the host. I thought I was part of the audience listening to the story.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. You've seen my descent. Now watch my
Yeah.
rising. It's a good thing you
Yeah.
brought poetry into this. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
strike a chord. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the question I want to ask now is, other than that story you just shared, which for me, I think I probably, I don't know how old you were when that stuff happened, but I probably will call it your ground zero, because when you left, it was like when you started your life, right?
Yeah.
Other than that period, right? Since you started from your ground zero till now, has there been a time where probably personally, maybe business wise, probably professionally, where it seemed like you took a deep dive, you kind of descended, and for some reason you
Oh.
just told yourself that, oh, I was going to rise, and you rose, and I need details.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been major bumps in the road. I started my first business in 2016. And I was doing it part-time on the side. Oh, I was an interior designer. I practiced interior
Okay.
design for 17 years. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do now, so I never know if it's confusing for people. And so I'd been an interior designer. That's what I went to school for. There's a whole story behind that unto itself, and we don't have enough time for. But that's what I had been practicing, and I decided to start my own business. And I realized, like, 3 years in, that I didn't wanna be an interior designer anymore, and I certainly didn't want that to be my business. And I had been, since I left the cult at 26, studying leadership and relationship, mostly for my own purposes, because, like, you can imagine growing up the way that I did, I didn't have any healthy models. No one was pointing me towards, "This is how you build healthy relationships. This is how you actually lead people in a way that's beneficial and healthy," and so on and so forth, because they weren't showing up that way. And if I had access to that knowledge, I could hold them accountable, right? And they didn't want that. And so I needed for myself to understand, how do I show up as a healthy human? How do I not hurt the people around me? How do I take accountability when I do hurt the people around me? Like, how these are all things that I was never taught. And so I had been spending, by 2016, I had spent easily almost 8 years, 10 years, 10 years, I guess, studying leadership and relationship for my own purposes. And somewhere, along that path, um, I gained crazy expertise in leadership and relationship that people thought were valuable. And I had people coming to me for coaching and so on and so forth, and to have these powerful conversations around their own leadership. And I was doing it for free. And then I realized, wait a second, right? I've been doing this research for a really long time. And maybe this is that next step for me. It had always leaked into my work as an interior designer, because I'd always start with these conversations of, like, who are you? How do you show up as a leader? How do you want to show up in relationship with the people around you? How do we build space that honors, these things and creates the kind of environment that facilitates, who you are and what kind of friendships you want to have and how you want people to gather in your home, your restaurant, your business, whatever it is. So there'd always been an aspect to that conversation. But I realized I started to care more about the conversation than the design work. And then I started kind of making this very clear transition to doing the leadership and the relationship work that I do now, and speaking to audiences, and dedicating myself to building this framework around curiosity, respect, and accountability, being what I think is required for all ethical relationship, for all real, authentic relationship. Um, and leadership being an ethical relationship with those we lead, and so on and so forth, right? And so in 2019, 2020, I was like, okay, I think I'm done with the interior design work. I'm still going to do it because I still to pay the bills, right? But I'm going to start transitioning to this other thing. And when you start a business, it's hard financially, right? With the first one, I was working full time and I did the business part time. In 2019, I was no longer working for someone else. I was just working for myself. So starting over meant starting from ground zero in the business, right?
Yeah.
No money coming in for speaking engagements. I was doing them for free at first, for the first like year or so. And so, there was this kind of like, you feel like you failed, right? I'm letting go of this business. I know that I don't want to take it forward. It wasn't doing bad financially, but I was actually kind of doing pretty well at the time. But letting it go meant forfeiting, taking on new clients and actually making money. And it feels like this deep failure, right? Because like
You get to start
now,
from ground
okay,
zero.
yeah, you got to start from ground zero again, right? And I'm like, how many times am I going to start from ground zero in my life, right? But honestly, but I knew, like, there's part of you that just knows in the depths of your soul when you make those kind of leaps in your life, like, you're not going to fail. Ultimately, in the long term, you're not going to fail because you are committed to your own survival. And so, that was the place that I came from. And ultimately now, the business is doing quite well. I'm, what year is it? 2025. I'm 5 years into it. And ultimately, like, uh, so thankful that I made that change, even though, there was this, moment of having to start over again. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so I was talking about the fact that starting over, even though it was really hard to start over again from like ground zero, ultimately now 5 years into the new business, the business is doing well, but I'm doing well. I'm so much better for having
yeah.
made that change. And I'm so passionate about what I do that that I can't imagine going back. Like I can't imagine what my life would have been if I just continued forward with the interior design work. I don't think I could have. I don't
Yeah.
think I could have, unless I really
Yeah.
had
I'm
to.
I'm curious right now.
But
What exactly is the
yeah,
business
go ahead.
you're running now? Because you talk about starting a new business, but you didn't really tell us
Yeah.
like what the business is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am a speaker and a consultant, and I facilitate workshops as well. And ultimately, I study leadership and relationship. So what I do is talk to people about leadership and relationship, and it's my unique framework of, needing to start from the place of building relationships, of needing to be invested in curiosity, respect, and accountability. So yeah, it's really taking all that I learned really originally for myself and then, ultimately applying it and sharing it with the world, realizing that, other people would benefit from the same knowledge, because for so many of us, our parents were like our first models for relationship, but maybe they didn't have healthy models. Maybe they're just still trying to figure it out. I know I'm an adult. I'm 40 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out, right? And this is what I study. So I think to have an intentional understanding of what relationship is gives us something more concrete to work towards, rather than just like fumbling around and trying to figure it out
Yeah.
as we make
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Um. Okay. I did ask for the stories, and you shared the business story now. Is there still more where that came from? No, no, not
About
just
the
the business.
business?
Like, the whole question I asked in the first place was like, what are some stories where it seems like you are descend you took a deep dive, and now you ascended somehow, and then you shared one in your business story. So I'm hoping, are there other stories too? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, when I made the transition from what I was doing before to now, the interior design work to the, speaking and scholarly research and so on and so forth, um, who I spent time with changed. um, just starting in a business in general, who I spent time with changed. But ultimately, what I do now, it's made me much more intentional about who I spend time with and how I spend my time. And not in a I'm cutting things out kind of way, but what I add in to my life. Who I add in, and the things that I intentionally spend time investing in, even going for a walk and saying hi to my neighbors. I now recognize these things as valuable and adding joy to my life, because of how much I have researched relationship, right? And like how I understand all these different facets more deeply now and how they add to our joy. And so, my relationships with my family changed and got stronger and healthier. We also all like went to therapy. And and my friendships changed and got stronger, and I was more intentional about it wasn't just like, okay, well, this person wants to be my friend and I'm going to be their friend, and it doesn't really work. It was more like, no, we align with our intentions for our life and the way that we look at, the way that we look at honoring other people and so on and so forth. And so I'm going to spend more time with people who, spend their life being curious and wanting to learn and wanting to better connect with themselves and one another. Like, it really made it so that there are much more beautiful, strong relationships in my life, which obviously has brought me a lot of joy.
Wow. You've seen my descent. Now watch me rise. Oh, sorry. Watch my rising. Rumi.
Mhm.
Wow. And what was the first one again? What was the first quote you shared again? Why did I forget? Yeah.
Oh, what was the first quote? By Maya Angelou. You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, the reward is great.
I see why I forgot it. It was a mouthful.
It's a long one.
Yeah, yeah. You've seen my descent. Now
Yeah.
watch my rising. That's more like it. Yeah, yeah. That one is
Mhm.
sealed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing the stories. Wow. I feel like if I asked for
Yeah.
one more, I could get one more like Oliver. Oliver asked for more.
Probably. Let's see. I mean, I'm looking at another quote. So, your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart, give
The
yourself to
story.
it. Buddha. Yeah. Your work is
I was asking for one more
Oh,
story.
say that again? Oh, you were asking for one more story. Sorry, not another quote. Got it. I mean, I think part of what I've learned is also the kinds of relationships that I don't want to spend time with. So, right in the early pandemic shutdown days, I was living with another entrepreneur. And it looked like at first what we were trying to accomplish was aligned. But ultimately, I don't know what the friction was on their part, but it was very, very clear that there was friction and, starting to be some kind of friction in the relationship because I wasn't um, existing for their benefit. Right. I was existing for my benefit and our mutual benefit, but I wasn't going to um, give up my own dreams and my own desires and my own research for them, right? And it was odd that this person would think I would, right? But I very quickly realized this is very controlling and abusive behavior. And I left. 7 weeks after we moved in together, I was out. I left. I was gone. And I think so many times we require ourselves to find proof of a relationship not working. We have to have like concrete reasons, but we don't. Sometimes a relationship is just not meant to work. Sometimes people just aren't meant to spend their lives together, right? Just aren't meant, or maybe you were just meant to meet for a brief period of time, and your relationship has just not meant to go beyond those brief moments, or that week, that day, that hour, that 5 minutes, right? And trying to extend it is only going to cause both of you pain and difficulty. And so I think it's really important that, we don't, not necessarily to just give up on relationships, but when there's so much friction and when you feel that someone's not honoring you, you don't need proof. Just walk away. Just walk away. It wasn't easy, right? Because I'm like, okay, where am I going to rent another place right away? I was gone within days. I just called family member and I said, I'm moving home. Is that okay? Right. And they're like, yeah, okay. Because I was like, I'm not safe here. I don't feel psychologically safe. I don't feel emotionally safe here. I just need to go. And I'm lucky that I had that kind of support, but I hope that we all build the kind of relationships where someone would be there for you to help you figure out how to get out of those scenarios, right? But I think it's really important that we give ourselves permission to not need reasons that a relationship doesn't work. Sometimes the thing is, it just doesn't work, and that's enough. And we should just stand in that. We don't need crazy stories. We don't need drama. We don't need all of that. It's not going to work. And when we're walking away, and we're going to move on with our lives without one another. And that's enough.
Thank you so for sharing that. I'm curious to know, since you're the one who brought the quotes, you've seen my descent, now watch my rise. Who was Rumi talking to when he said, watch my rise?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's been so long since I looked at the quote. It's been on my wall for like, I don't know,
You said
6
the
or 8
quote.
years, so
You
I
said
don't
the quote.
remember.
You've seen my descent. Who are you? Who are you?
Who am
You've
I
seen my
talking
descent.
to?
Now watch my rising.
I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to anybody else. It's never been about anyone else. It's always been about whether or not I thought I was capable of rising. Because when so many people tell you that you're bad, you're wrong, you're to this, you're to that, you start to wonder if it's true. And it's not about proving them wrong. It's just about being yourself and proving to yourself that they were never right. Not that they're wrong, not proving them wrong, but they were never right. And actually, they knew exactly what you were capable of, which is why they said the things that they said. It was about their own insecurity and not how valuable you are or how powerful you are or what you're capable of. It never had anything to do with me. And I just needed to get to the place where I could stand in my own truth and be my own self, whatever that meant for me.
Oh, I feel like this conversation could go on and on and on, but unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for sharing your favorite quotes and for answering some of my silly questions.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I
Where can
appreciate it.
listeners learn more about what you do and what you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Shana Francesca, spelled like if you're watching this podcast, spelled just like on the screen. If you're listening to it, it's SHANA FRANCESCA. If you are looking for my website, it's www.consonate.world, and that's CONCINNATE.world. So those are the best places to find me and connect with me.
Once again, thank you. Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.